Just when we thought we were done with talking about this guy, oh boy, we have ourselves a new report here, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are highlighting some Montreal and Calgary trade targets because a brand new report out of RG.org and James Murphy talks about Boston Bruins center Pavel Zacha and the latest on his trade situation. Now, before we dive into the article, which has all the info we need, which will be linked in the description, by the way, it's a pretty good read here by James Murphy, let's talk about the profile. We've done this a few times, but I think for those who are new, y'all deserve to get the scoop as much as those who have been here. Pavel Zacha is 28 years old, a 6'4", 207-pound left-handed center left wing. A former 6th overall pick in the famous 2015 NHL Entry Draft, you might recognize Zacha because of the company he was drafted around. Taken as the 6th pick after Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Dylan Strome, Mitch Marner, and Noah Hanifin, Pavel Zacha was then taken before the likes of Provorov, Werenski, Timo Meier, and Rantanen. Scrolling down, you've got Jake DeBrusk, Matthew Barzal, Kyle Connor, Shabbat, Eriksson Ek, Brock Besser, Konechny. This first round in 2015, legendary stuff. And Pavel Zacha was seen as a potential top-line center in the future when he was selected 6th overall by New Jersey. Alas, Pavel Zacha never became a bona fide number one point-scoring guy like McDavid or Eichel or Marner ever became. But Zacha right now, pretty alright player. Coming off of 2 straight 50, near 60-point seasons with the Boston Bruins, Zacha declined to 47 points in 82 games this most recent campaign. Now, everybody on Boston was kind of worse this previous year, so I think it's understandable, but when Zacha is on, he is a very versatile, very useful top 6 caliber center who can produce 50 to 60 points on a given year, and who has a pretty decent playmaking edge. He was a point per game in the Boston Bruins' short-lived playoff run in 2023. He had the same amount of points in almost double the games the next year, though, as the Bruins advanced a little bit further. He was a lot better in Boston so far than he has ever been with the New Jersey Devils, which makes sense when you consider the fact that New Jersey has Hughes and Hischier, and they don't really have that developmental spot for Zacha to have become what he eventually became with Boston. But the Boston Bruins, as we noted, they're kind of not great right now. So it opens the door for some of these guys to get moved. Pavel Zacha's name has been in there, so has Casey Mittelstad's. And now, according to James Murphy on RG.org, we have a source that says the Montreal Canadiens and the Calgary Flames are among teams interested in the Boston Bruins' Pavel Zacha. Key takeaways from this article: which teams are in the mix for Zacha? The Canadiens have inquired, but the Flames and others remain interested as well. Why is Montreal pursuing Zacha, and why is it notable? This deal would be the first NHL roster trade between the Canadiens and Bruins since 2001. I think they've made some trades in the past, swapping draft picks at the draft here and there, but not necessarily anything that actually has roster-impacting implications. Another takeaway from this piece: what is Kent Hughes' stance on acquiring a center? He's exploring options like Zacha or McTavish, but he will not break up Montreal's young core unless it is the right fit. Let's scroll down and read what this article has to say. An NHL source has confirmed to RJ Media that the Montreal Canadiens have inquired about Pavel Zacha. The source says this: the Canadiens definitely have interest in him, and they have inquired about him. But they're not the only team. Several teams, I'm told the Flames are one, continue to express interest in Zacha. This article then dives into some of the history here. While a trade does not seem to be imminent at this point, another source told RG.org that different trade scenarios have been discussed. While no names were confirmed, the source says the Canadiens prospects Josh Waugh and Oliver Kapanen, as well as Jaden Struble, are the names that continue to be bantered about in NHL trade chatter regarding the Canadiens' search for a second-line center. It should be noted that RG has heard Strubal's name connected to the Bruins before. The rugged 6-foot, 207-pound left-shot D-man who just turned 24 is expected to battle it out for a third-pairing slot on the Canadiens' blue line in training camp. The Bruins amateur scouts, who would have seen plenty of the Cumberland, Rhode Island native when he patrolled the blue line for St. Sebastian's High School and then Northeastern University. I know he's a guy they've liked, but it would take more than Jayden Struble to acquire Pavel Zacha, the second source said. As for Zacha, multiple sources have indicated to RG throughout the offseason that the NHL trade chatter surrounding him has not come from the Bruins, but rather the teams interested in him. Donnie, Bruins GM Don Sweeney, is not shopping Pavel Zacha, the second source told RG. This is just him doing his job and listening. I don't see this as something that would happen before American Thanksgiving. If the Bruins get off to another brutal start and the holiday trade freeze is looming, well, then this could become a lot more than just listening, but that goes for other Bruins players too. Not just Zacha. So this is a lot of good info here. Montreal potentially tossing out names like Josh Waugh, Oliver Kapanen, and Jayden Struble in trade talks. We can have a bigger and better conversation about those guys at a different time, but hearing that Montreal could potentially dangle Struble's name for some sort of a Pavel Zacha trade, probably Struble and a little bit more, Struble maybe in a second, Struble in a first if you really wanted to stretch it out there. If the Bruins wanted Struble, it would not surprise me. I mean, he's been a local guy in their backyard for years, and he plays the Boston way. However, it is apparent that Boston is straight up not giving up on Zacha yet. They're just listening. It's not really like the Bruins are desperate to get rid of this guy. As for Montreal, though, and their continued search for that second-line center, Canadiens GM continues to scour the NHL trade market. But he, too, isn't going to force the trade unless it's the right fit. It's no secret the Canadiens looked into Mason McTavish, but as reported last week, the Ducks aren't quite there yet and they still want to sign him. I can tell you this. I know Kent and Jeff Gorton are very reluctant to mess with their young core for any center. McTavish, Zacha, anyone. So that's good. Doesn't look like any of these guys will be available in a trade, even if it's for a guy like McTavish or a Zacha or whatever. Suzuki, Dobson, Caulfield, Hudson, these guys all seem to be safe for now, and rightfully so. They're all very good players, and I think the Montreal Canadiens are better for it if they keep them around. However, the article does say that the Canadiens moved Carey Price's contract to be available in any case any top 6 center became available on the market. Now, interestingly enough, when it comes to Calgary, this article has been all about Montreal, but Calgary is in there too. I'll say this, that if there is some sort of a bidding war, if Montreal and Calgary are both going out there and testing the waters, testing the market for Pavel Zacha, things could get really interesting for the Boston Bruins. We know they want to get younger. Montreal's got a lot of young talent. If you go over to the Calgary Flames, and they're in the system as well, they have a bunch of dudes that I think could be noteworthy if you're a Boston team trying to go full-on, full-fledged rebuild. We know Calgary wants to be competitive. That's kind of the entire reason they kept Nazem Kadri around, but thinking about their long term, I mean, they have a really interesting amount of prospects that can provide some value, I'd say. Big shout out to former legend in our YouTube chat, Owen Say, who inked a contract with Calgary earlier this summer. But there are some other guys that are very, very talented here. Nikita Okotiuk is an interesting one. Hunter Brustevich, Zane Parekh, although of course he's probably not going to get moved around. Jeremy Poirier has always intrigued me. Same with Jan Kuznetsov. These are only the defensemen, though. If we go over into some of the other names, Adam Klapka, I would not be surprised if the Boston Bruins were interested in him. Matvei Gradin is over here. So is William Stromgren. Lots of interesting names the Calgary Flames have in their prospect pool. So I think that they might be able to give Montreal a run for Kent Hughes' money in some sort of a Pavel Zacha trade bidding war scenario. But I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Pavel Zacha as a trade chip? What are your thoughts on Montreal and Calgary potentially battling it out to get this guy? And what are your thoughts on Boston's stance? They're not going to go out there and force a trade just yet. But if there is an offer they can't refuse, I guess we know where things are going to go, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this. 99 and bye.